The massive crystal chamber floated in space above the planet Nexus Prime. Inside, creatures from 12 different worlds sat around a circular table that glowed with soft blue light. This was the Galactic Ruling Council, and today, they would make a decision that would change everything. Council Speaker Vextar stood up from his chair. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms that moved as he talked. His people, the Altarians, had been part of the galaxy's ruling class for over 1,000 years. When he spoke, others listened. "We gather today to discuss the humans," Vextar said. His voice echoed in the crystal chamber. "For 300 years, we have kept them locked in their home system. The question now is simple. Should we set them free?" Around the table, the other council members shifted in their seats. Some looked worried. Others seemed bored. The Draconian representative, a large reptile-like creature named Thakmor, let out what sounded like a laugh. "The humans are broken," Thakmor said. "They were dangerous once, but not anymore. Look at their recent messages. They talk about art and farming. They have given up fighting." Vextar nodded and activated a holographic display above the table. Images of Earth appeared in the air. Green fields stretched across continents. Cities looked peaceful and quiet. Humans could be seen tending gardens and painting pictures. "Our monitoring stations report that human population has remained stable for 50 years, Vextar continued. "Their technology has not advanced. They send us poetry and music instead of weapons research. They seem to have learned their lesson." The lesson Vextar spoke of was the reason humans had been locked away in the first place. 300 years ago, when aliens first visited Earth, things had gone very wrong. The Zephyrian diplomatic ship had approached Earth peacefully, but the humans had panicked. They thought it was an invasion. In their fear, they had destroyed the alien vessel with nuclear weapons. That act of violence had shocked the galaxy. No species had ever attacked a diplomatic mission before. The Galactic Council had acted quickly. They surrounded the human solar system with quantum barriers. No human ship could leave. No alien ship could enter. Earth was cut off from the rest of the galaxy. "I remember those days," said Councillor Mirith of the Centauran Federation. Her blue skin sparkled in the chamber's light. "The humans were so aggressive, so unpredictable. They fought wars among themselves constantly. But they have changed," Vextar replied. "Our surveillance shows they have not fought a major war in over 2 centuries. They have united under a single planetary government. They focus on peaceful activities now." Far away from the council chamber, in a space station orbiting Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison sat in his command center. He was a man in his 60s with gray hair and tired eyes. On his desk lay the message that had arrived that morning from the Galactic Council. Morrison read the message again. The words were formal and cold, but their meaning was clear. The Council was considering lifting the quarantine around Earth. Humans might finally be allowed to travel to the stars. Lieutenant Amy Patterson entered the room. She was young, maybe 30 years old, with short brown hair and bright eyes. She had been Morrison's assistant for 5 years, and she knew him well enough to see when something was bothering him. "Sir, you asked to see the latest reports from the outer monitoring stations," she said, placing a tablet on his desk. Morrison looked up at her. "Amy, what do you think they see when they look at us?" The question surprised her. "Sir?" "The aliens. When they watch us from their hidden cameras and listening posts, what do they think they see?" Amy thought for a moment. "They probably see what they want to see, sir. A peaceful species that has learned to behave." Morrison almost smiled. "Exactly." He stood up and walked to the large window that looked out at Earth. The planet looked beautiful from space. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown continents. It looked peaceful and harmless, but Morrison knew better. He had spent his entire career preparing for this day. Every human on Earth had been preparing for this day. Back in the council chamber, the debate continued. The representative from the Regellian Trade Union, a creature that looked like a large insect, waved its many arms as it spoke. The economic benefits could be significant. It buzzed. Human art and food products might find markets throughout the galaxy. They could become useful trading partners. They are no threat to anyone now, added the Andromedan delegate. Their ships are slow and primitive. Their weapons are basic. If they cause trouble, we can always put the barriers back up. Vextar looked around the table. Most of the council members seemed to agree. The humans had been punished long enough. They had learned their lesson. It was time to give them a chance to join galactic society. But not everyone was convinced. General Crix of the Draconian Empire leaned forward in his chair. His scales were dark green, and his eyes glowed red in the chamber's light. I fought in the border wars, Crix said. I have seen what happens when we underestimate a species. The humans may seem peaceful now, but what if it is a trick? A trick that has lasted 300 years? Vexitar asked. General, with respect, I think you are being too cautious. Perhaps, Crix replied, but I remember the reports from the first contact incident. The humans destroyed our ship in minutes. They showed no mercy, no hesitation. That kind of violence does not just disappear. Vextar activated another holographic display. This one showed charts and graphs about human activity over the past century. Look at the data, General. Human military spending has dropped by 90%. They have dismantled most of their weapons. Their space program is focused on exploration, not warfare. They are not the same species they were 300 years ago. What Vextar and the others did not know was that every piece of data they were looking at had been carefully prepared. The humans had spent decades making sure the aliens saw exactly what they wanted them to see. On Earth, in a facility buried deep underground, Dr. Helen Brooks watched the council meeting through hidden cameras. She was a small woman, with red hair and intense green eyes. For 20 years she had been in charge of the deception protocol. They are falling for it, she said to the man standing beside her. Commander Tony Baker was younger than Brooks, but his face looked older than his years. The stress of maintaining the deception had aged everyone involved in the project. Are you sure we are ready? Baker asked. We have been ready for 50 years, Brooks replied. The question is whether we can keep pretending to be weak much longer. Back in the council chamber, the debate was coming to an end. Vextar called for a vote. One by one, the representatives of the 12 major species raised their hands. The vote was unanimous. The quarantine around Earth would be lifted. Admiral Morrison felt his tablet buzz with an incoming message. The words appeared on the screen in bright letters. The Galactic Council had made their decision. Humanity was free. Morrison walked back to his desk and sat down. For a moment, he just stared at the message. Then he pressed a button on his communication panel. This is Admiral Morrison to all stations. Authorization Omega 77. Begin Phase 1 of Operation Breakout. The galaxy is about to learn what humans are really capable of. 300 years of careful planning were about to pay off. The Galactic Council thought they were being merciful. They thought they were giving a broken species a second chance. They had no idea they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. The barriers around Earth began to power down. For the first time in 3 centuries, human ships would be free to travel to the stars. But the Council had failed to understand one simple truth about humans. They were very good at appearing weak when they were actually getting ready to strike. 6 months had passed since the quantum barriers around Earth had been shut down. The first human ships began appearing at space stations across the galaxy. They were small vessels, nothing impressive to look at. Most aliens barely noticed them. Captain Lisa Rodriguez guided her cargo ship Wanderer through the docking bay of Kepler Station. The station was huge, built like a wheel spinning slowly in space. Ships from dozens of different worlds came here to trade goods and information. It was one of the busiest places in the galaxy. Rodriguez was a woman in her 40s with dark hair tied back in a simple ponytail. She wore plain work clothes and carried herself like any other cargo hauler. When she spoke to the docking controller, her voice was polite and friendly. Earth cargo vessel Wanderer requesting permission to dock, she said into her radio. The station master was a Rigelian named Clack. He had 4 arms and looked like a giant insect. His voice came through the speaker with a buzzing sound. "Welcome to Kepler Station, human ship. You are cleared for docking bay 7. Please prepare. Your cargo manifest for inspection." Rodriguez smiled. "Thank you, Station Master. We are carrying coffee, artwork, and some Earth textiles. Nothing dangerous." As her ship settled into the docking bay, Rodriguez looked at the man sitting next to her. Lieutenant Carlos Mendoza appeared to be her co-pilot, but he was actually much more than that. Like Rodriguez herself, he was a highly trained intelligence operative. "Sensors are working perfectly," Mendoza whispered. "We are getting clear readings on their defense systems." "Good," Rodriguez replied. "Remember, we are just simple traders from Earth. Act friendly, but not too eager." The cargo hold of the Wanderer looked normal from the outside. It contained boxes of coffee beans, paintings, and cloth goods from Earth. But hidden inside the walls were some of the most advanced scanning devices humanity had ever built. They could map every computer system, every weapon, and every weak point within 50 light years. Rodriguez and Mendoza spent 3 days on Kepler Station. They sold their goods, bought local products, and chatted with other traders. Everyone they met found them pleasant but forgettable. Just another species trying to make a living in the galaxy. What the aliens did not notice was how carefully the humans observed everything. Rodriguez memorized the layout of every important system on the station. Mendoza counted the security guards and noted when they changed shifts. They recorded every conversation they overheard. On the industrial world of Titan's Edge, engineer Carlos Santos opened a small repair shop for spacecraft. He was a quiet man who worked alone in a modest building near the spaceport. His prices were fair and his work was excellent. Soon, ship crews from all over the sector were bringing their vessels to him. Santos had a gift for fixing things quickly. When a Centauran freighter captain brought him a broken engine, Santos had it running like new in just 2 hours. When a draconian military patrol ship needed new sensors, Santos installed better ones than the ship had originally carried. "You humans are very good with machines," the draconian officer said as he paid Santos for the work. Santos smiled and wiped grease from his hands. "We have always been good at making things work better." But Santos was doing much more than just repairing ships. Every piece of alien technology that came through his shop was carefully studied. He took detailed photographs and measurements. He analyzed how each system worked and sent encrypted reports back to Earth. The data Santos collected was incredibly valuable. Human scientists learned how alien engines worked, how their weapons functioned, and how their shields operated. Most importantly, they learned the weaknesses in every system. On the farming world of Haven Prime, Dr. Helen Moore established a research center for studying alien plant life. She was a friendly woman who seemed genuinely excited about learning new things. The local Centauran governor welcomed her warmly. "We are honored to have a human scientist working on our world," Governor Veltar told her. "Perhaps you can help us improve our crop yields." "I hope so," Moore replied. Earth plants and Haven Prime plants might have much to teach each other. Moore did help with the farming. She introduced new techniques that increased crop production by 20%. The local farmers were grateful and considered her a friend. But her real work happened in her private laboratory after dark. Moore was secretly cataloging every biological weapon and defense system used by different alien species. She studied the plants that Centaurans used to create sleeping gas. She analyzed the bacteria that Draconians used to clean their water. She mapped the genetic codes of organisms that could be turned into weapons. All across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Humans appeared on world after world. Always, in small numbers, always seeming harmless. They opened shops, started farms, and offered their services as workers and traders. On the mining world of Zerion 7, Commander Tony Baker ran a small medical clinic. He treated injured miners and sick colonists with skill and kindness. Everyone who met him thought he was just a doctor trying to help people. But Baker was actually a military intelligence officer. His medical supplies contained sophisticated communication equipment that let him stay in contact with human agents throughout the galaxy. Every night, he sent and received coded messages that looked like routine medical reports. Dr. Amy Chen worked as a translator on the diplomatic world of New Geneva. She helped aliens communicate with each other when language barriers caused problems. Her work was valuable, and she was invited to many important meetings. Chen had an amazing ability to learn languages quickly. Within months, she could speak and understand the native languages of a dozen different species. But she used this skill for more than just translation. She listened to private conversations and recorded secret negotiations. On the trade world of Port Royal, mechanic Steve Johnson worked in the main spaceport. He serviced the landing systems that guided ships safely to the ground. His work was essential, and no one questioned his presence in restricted areas. Johnson used his access to plant tiny listening devices throughout the spaceport. These devices recorded every conversation and transmitted the information to human agents on other worlds. Within a year, humans knew about every secret cargo shipment and every private meeting that took place on Port Royal. The pattern was the same everywhere. Humans arrived quietly, found useful jobs, and became part of the local community. They were helpful, friendly, and completely unremarkable. Most aliens forgot about them within days of meeting them. But the humans never forgot anything. They watched, listened, and learned. Every piece of information was carefully recorded and sent back to Earth through quantum encrypted channels that aliens could not detect. On Earth itself, the planet was busier than it had ever been. The population had grown from 8 billion to almost 12 billion people. Most of the new residents lived in underground cities that could not be seen from space. They were soldiers, scientists, and engineers preparing for something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Jake Morrison walked through the command center buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Thousands of technicians worked at computer stations, analyzing the data coming in from human agents across the galaxy. "How many worlds do we have coverage on now?" Morrison asked his aide, Lieutenant Patricia Williams. 217 worlds, sir," Williams replied. "We have agents on every major trade route and at least one person in every important government center." Morrison nodded. The plan was working perfectly. For 2 years, humans had been spreading across the galaxy like seeds on the wind. They had taken root everywhere, growing slowly and quietly. "What about our military preparation?" Morrison asked. "Ahead of schedule, sir. The new ships are ready for testing. Our weapon systems are performing beyond expectations, and our intelligence network is better than anything the galaxy has ever seen." Morrison looked at the massive display screen that showed the locations of every human agent in the galaxy. Red dots marked their positions on hundreds of different worlds. It looked like a disease spreading through the galaxy's body. But the aliens still saw nothing. They thought humans were just another minor species trying to find their place in galactic civilization. They had no idea that every human trader, every human worker, and every human scientist was part of a vast intelligence operation. The Galactic Council received regular reports about human activity. The reports were always the same. Humans were peaceful, helpful, and posed no threat to anyone. They were integrating well into galactic society. What the Council did not know was that many of these reports were written by humans themselves. The intelligence network had grown so large that humans now controlled much of the information flow between different worlds. Back on Kepler Station, Captain Rodriguez prepared her ship for departure. She had been there for 3 months, and her cargo hold was full of valuable goods from dozens of different worlds. But the real treasure was the information she carried. "Phase 2 is almost complete," she told Mendoza as they prepared for launch. "Soon it will be time for Phase 3. Mendoza checked his instruments one last time. Hidden in the ship's computers was a complete map of Kepler Station's defenses, along with detailed information about every ship that used the facility. "The galaxy has no idea what is coming," he said quietly. Commander Tony Baker was loading medical supplies onto his transport ship when the message arrived. He was on the mining world of Zerion 7th, where he had been working as a doctor for 18 months. The local miners trusted him completely. They had no idea he was actually a military intelligence officer. The message appeared on his private communication device. It contained only 2 words, but those words changed everything. Phase 3. Baker's hands stopped moving. For 2 years, he had been waiting for this moment. Around the galaxy, hundreds of other human agents were receiving the same message at exactly the same time. Baker walked calmly to his medical clinic and activated the emergency lockdown system. The doors sealed shut with a soft hiss. Then he pressed a hidden panel on the wall. The panel slid away to reveal military equipment that had been hidden there for months. Within minutes, Baker had changed from a peaceful doctor into a fully armed soldier. His medical clinic transformed into a command center filled with weapons, communication gear, and tactical displays. On Kepler Station, Captain Lisa Rodriguez was drinking coffee with Station Master Clack when her wrist device vibrated twice. The signal was so brief that Clack did not notice it, but Rodriguez knew what it meant. "I need to check on my cargo," she told Clack politely. "There might be a problem with the refrigeration system." Rodriguez walked quickly back to her ship. As soon as she was inside, she activated hidden controls that had been built into the cargo hold walls. The boxes of coffee and artwork suddenly moved aside to reveal rows of advanced weapons and electronic equipment. Lieutenant Carlos Mendoza was already at the weapons control station. "All systems are ready, Captain," he said. "Waiting for your orders." Rodriguez sat down at the command chair that rose from the floor of what had appeared to be an empty cargo hold. Around her, display screens came to life showing tactical information about Kepler Station. "Target their communication array first," she ordered. "Then disable their defense grid. Remember, we want to capture, not destroy." On the farming world of Haven Prime, Dr. Helen Moore was teaching local children about earth plants when her bracelet beeped once. She smiled at the children and told them class was over for the day. Moore walked back to her research facility and entered a code into her computer. Immediately, the building began to change. Walls slid away to reveal hidden laboratories. Equipment rose from beneath the floor. In minutes, the peaceful research center had become a biological warfare facility. Moore put on a protective suit and began releasing genetically modified organisms into Haven Prime's atmosphere. These organisms had been specially designed to interfere with Centauran technology. They would disable the planet's defense systems within hours. All across the galaxy, the same thing was happening on 200 different worlds. Human agents who had seemed harmless for 2 years suddenly revealed their true nature. Trading posts became military bases. Repair shops became weapon factories. Medical clinics became command centers. The attacks were perfectly coordinated. Every human agent activated at exactly the same moment, as if controlled by a single mind. In reality, they were following a plan that had been developed over decades and practiced thousands of times. On Kepler Station, Rodriguez's ship fired invisible energy beams at the station's communication towers. The beams did not destroy the towers, but they made them useless. Within seconds, Kepler Station could no longer send messages to other worlds. At the same time, Mendoza activated devices that had been secretly planted throughout the station over the past 3 months. These devices sent electromagnetic pulses through the station's defense systems. The powerful weapons that protected Kepler Station simply stopped working. Station Master Clack was in his office when the lights went out. Emergency power came on a moment later, but his communication systems remained dead. He tried to call for help, but no signal could get through. "What is happening?" Clack buzzed in confusion. He had 4 arms, but none of them could make his equipment work. The answer came when Rodriguez's voice echoed through the station's speakers. "Attention all residents of Kepler Station. This is Captain Lisa Rodriguez of the Earth Strategic Command. Your station is now under human control." Clack's mouth fell open in shock. The friendly human trader who had been selling coffee and artwork was actually a military officer. But how was that possible? On Haven Prime, Governor Veltar was enjoying lunch when his aide rushed into the room. The aide's blue skin was pale with fear. "Governor, our defense systems have stopped working," the aide said. "Something is interfering with all our technology." Before Veltar could respond, Dr. Helen Moore appeared on his communication screen. But she was no longer wearing the simple clothes of a plant researcher. Now she wore a military uniform with the insignia of a human colonel. "Governor Veltar," Moore said calmly, I regret to inform you that Haven Prime is now under human military control. Please order your security forces to remain calm. No one will be harmed if you cooperate. Veltar stared at the screen in disbelief. Dr. Moore? But you are a scientist. You helped our farmers. You taught our children. I did help your farmers, Moore replied. And I do care about your children. That is why I hope you will surrender peacefully. Similar scenes were taking place on worlds throughout the galaxy. Alien governments found their communication systems disabled and their defense grids offline. Humans they had known and trusted for months were suddenly in control of their most important facilities. The speed and coordination of the attack was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Within 2 hours, human forces had taken control of major trade routes, communication hubs, and resource centers across 200 star systems. But the most shocking part was not the attack itself. It was the technology the humans were using. Their weapons and equipment were far more advanced than anything the Galactic Council had seen before. On the industrial world of Titan's Edge, mechanic Carlos Santos had revealed his repair shop to be a hidden fortress. The simple tools he had used to fix alien ships were actually sophisticated weapons that could disable entire fleets. When the local Draconian garrison tried to retake the spaceport, Santos activated defense systems that the Draconians could not even understand. Energy shields appeared out of nowhere. Automated weapons emerged from hidden positions. The Draconian soldiers found themselves facing technology that seemed impossible. How do the humans have such advanced equipment? The Draconian commander demanded over his radio. But there was no answer. The human jamming systems had cut off all military communications. Far away on Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the main command center buried deep underground. Around him, thousands of technicians monitored the coordinated attacks happening across the galaxy. Phase 3 is proceeding as planned, reported Lieutenant Patricia Williams. All primary objectives have been secured. Resistance is minimal. Morrison nodded as he watched the tactical displays. Green lights showed successful human operations on world after world. The plan that had taken 3 centuries to develop was working perfectly. Open a channel to the entire galaxy, Morrison ordered. A massive communication array hidden on the dark side of Earth's moon began broadcasting a signal that could reach every inhabited world in the galaxy. Morrison's image appeared on screens throughout civilized space. He was a man in his 60s, wearing the uniform of Earth's military command. His face was calm and professional, but his eyes held the confidence of someone who held all the winning cards. Citizens of the galaxy, Morrison began. This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the Earth Strategic Command. I am speaking to you from Earth orbit aboard the battleship Liberty. As he spoke, the camera pulled back to show the ship Morrison was standing on. It was enormous, larger than any vessel the galaxy had ever seen. Its design was unlike anything in any alien database. For the past 2 years, human representatives have lived and worked among you. Morrison continued. They have been your traders, your mechanics, your doctors, and your teachers. You welcomed them into your communities, and many of you became their friends. On worlds across the galaxy, aliens stared at their screens in shock. They were beginning to understand the scope of what had happened. Those humans were not just traders and workers, Morrison said. They were intelligence operatives, gathering information and preparing for this day. Every human you met was part of a carefully planned operation. The camera showed tactical displays that revealed the true extent of human infiltration. Red dots marked human positions on hundreds of worlds. Lines connected the dots, showing a vast network that covered the entire galaxy. We want you to know that this is not an act of conquest, Morrison continued. We have no desire to rule over other species, but we will no longer accept being treated as second-class citizens. The message was being received in the crystal chamber above Nexus Prime, where the Galactic Council was meeting an emergency session. Council Speaker Vexitar watched Morrison's broadcast with growing horror. The demonstration you have witnessed today was necessary to prove a point, Morrison said. Humanity is not the broken species you believed us to be. We are not the primitive race you locked away 3 centuries ago. Vexitar tried to activate the Council's communication systems to respond to Morrison's message, but nothing worked. Council Speaker Vexitar stood in his private chambers, staring out at the stars through the crystal walls. His 4 gray arms moved nervously as reports continued to arrive from across the galaxy. Each message brought worse news than the last. Sator. Humans had taken control of 3 major trade routes. Communication hubs on 50 worlds were no longer responding. Resource centers that supplied fuel and food to entire star systems were under human command. All of this had happened in less than 6 hours. How is this possible? Vexitar asked himself. The humans had seemed so weak, so harmless. For 2 years, they had been nothing more than peaceful traders and workers. Now they were revealing technology that seemed decades ahead of anything the Council possessed. His aide, a young Altarian named Kestu, entered the chamber carrying a datapad. Kestu's skin was pale with fear. "Speaker, we have received a message from General Thakmor," Kestu said. "He is requesting permission to assemble a military response." Vexitar took the datapad and read the message. General Thakmor of the Draconian Empire wanted to gather the largest fleet in galactic history, 500 warships from 12 different species. It would be an overwhelming show of force. "Tell the general he has my permission," Vexitar said. "We cannot allow this human rebellion to continue." But even as he spoke, Vexitar felt a cold fear in his stomach. Something about this situation was very wrong. The humans had planned everything too perfectly. They seemed to know exactly what the Council would do. On the military world of Draco Prime, General Thakmor was already assembling his fleet. The massive Draconian was 8 feet tall with dark green scales and glowing red eyes. He had fought in dozens of battles and never lost a single one. "How many ships do we have ready?" Thakmor asked his aide, Colonel Vexkis. 473 ships, General," Vexkis replied. "Cruisers, destroyers, and battleships from every major species. It is the largest military force ever assembled." Thakmor smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Excellent. The humans may have surprised us, but they cannot fight an entire fleet. Their technology may be advanced, but numbers will win the day." What Thakmor did not know was that every message he sent was being intercepted by human intelligence. In a hidden facility on the asteroid Ceres, Dr. Amy Chen was monitoring all Draconian military communications. Chen was the same woman who had worked as a translator on New Geneva, but her real job had always been signals intelligence. She could break any alien code and read any encrypted message. "The Draconian fleet is moving toward Sol system," Chen reported to Earth Command. 500 ships, just as we predicted. On Earth, Admiral Morrison received the report with no surprise. Everything was happening exactly as human planners had expected. The aliens were responding to the crisis in the most predictable way possible. "Are our defense forces ready?" Morrison asked General Kate Sullivan, his second in command. Sullivan was a woman in her 50s with short blonde hair and cold blue eyes. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. "Ready and waiting, Admiral," Sullivan said. "The enemy fleet will reach Sol system in 18 hours. Our ships are already in position." Morrison walked to the main tactical display. It showed the positions of both human and alien forces throughout the galaxy. The alien fleet looked impressive on the screen, but Morrison knew better. "How many ships are we deploying?" Morrison asked. 12, Sullivan replied. Morrison almost smiled. 12 human ships against 500 alien vessels. The odds seemed impossible, but Morrison knew something the aliens did not. Human technology had advanced far beyond anything the galaxy had seen. The alien fleet moved through space like a swarm of angry insects. Ships from 12 different species flew in tight formation. Draconian battleships led the way, followed by Altarian cruisers and Centauran destroyers. It was a beautiful and terrifying sight. General Thakmor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conqueror. The massive ship was 3 miles long and carried enough weapons to destroy a planet. Around him, his officers prepared for battle. "Sir, we are approaching the Sol system," reported his navigation officer. "Good," Thakmor said. "Signal all ships. We will show these humans what happens when they challenge the galactic order." But as the fleet entered human space, something strange happened. Their sensors detected only 12 human ships waiting for them. The vessels were arranged in a loose formation around Earth's moon. 12 ships? Takmor asked in confusion. That is all they have? Sir, our scans show the human vessels are much larger than expected, his weapons officer reported. But they are still outnumbered 40-1. Takmor laughed. Open a communication channel to the human fleet. The main screen showed the bridge of a human ship. A woman in military uniform appeared on the display. She had blonde hair and wore the insignia of a general. I am General Kate Sullivan of the Earth Defense Force, the woman said calmly. You are entering human space without permission. Please turn around and leave immediately. Takmor's laughter echoed through his bridge. General Sullivan, you are facing 500 warships with only 12 vessels. Surrender now and we will show mercy. Sullivan's expression did not change. General Takmor, you are facing 12 ships that you do not understand with 500 ships that are already obsolete. This is your last chance to withdraw. Attack! Takmor roared. The alien fleet opened fire with thousands of weapons. Energy beams and missiles streaked through space toward the human ships. It should have been the end of the human fleet in seconds, but something impossible happened. The human ships simply vanished. Where did they go? Takmor demanded, his sensors. Operator was frantically checking his instruments. Sir, I cannot locate them. They just disappeared from our scans. The answer came when the human ships reappeared directly in the middle of the alien formation. But now they looked different. Weapons and armor that had been hidden were now visible. The ships were twice as large as they had seemed before. The human vessels moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. They darted between alien ships with impossible speed and precision. Their weapons fired energy beams that cut through alien shields as if they were made of paper. Impossible, Takmor shouted. No ship can move that fast. But the human ships were not just fast. They seemed to know exactly where each alien vessel would be before it got there. Their attacks were perfectly coordinated, as if all 12 ships were controlled by a single mind. The battle lasted exactly 47 minutes. When it was over, the alien fleet was completely disabled. Not destroyed, but helpless. Every ship had lost power to its weapons and engines. They drifted in space like dead fish. Takmor stood on his bridge in shock. His mighty fleet had been defeated by 12 human ships. It seemed impossible, but the evidence was floating around him. General Sullivan's image appeared on his screen again. She looked exactly the same as before, calm and professional. General Takmor, your fleet has been disabled, Sullivan said. Rescue ships are already on their way to collect your crews. No one needs to die today. How? Takmor whispered. How did you defeat us so easily? We have had 300 years to prepare for this moment, Sullivan replied. We studied your technology, learned your tactics, and developed weapons you cannot imagine. Did you really think we spent all that time doing nothing? On the Crystal Space Station above Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council watched the battle through long-range sensors. The council chamber was completely silent. No one could speak. Vexitar finally found his voice. Our most powerful fleet has been defeated by 12 ships. Council member Mirith of the Centauran Federation was shaking. How advanced is their technology? How did they develop such weapons? Before anyone could answer, Admiral Morrison appeared on their communication screen. He was standing on the bridge of a ship that registered as impossibly huge on their sensors. Members of the Galactic Council, Morrison said. I am speaking to you from the Space Fortress Guardian, which is currently in orbit around your council station. The council members looked at each other in terror. How had a human ship gotten so close without being detected? I want to make something very clear, Morrison continued. Humanity has no desire for conquest or revenge. We simply want to be treated as equals in galactic civilization. But you attacked us, Vexitar protested weakly. We defended ourselves against your attack, Morrison corrected. Your fleet entered our space with hostile intent. We responded, appropriately. Morrison paused for a moment, letting his words sink in. The demonstration you have witnessed today was necessary to prove a point. Humanity is not the weak species you believed us to be. We are capable of defending ourselves against any threat. What do you want from us? Mirith asked. Recognition, Morrison replied simply. We want full membership in the Galactic Council. We want equal rights for human citizens throughout the galaxy. We want to be partners, not prisoners. The Council members looked at each other uncertainly. They had just watched their most powerful fleet defeated in less than an hour. The humans had technology that seemed magical. What choice did they have? If we agree to your terms, Vextar asked carefully, will you release control of our worlds? Immediately, Morrison promised. We never wanted to occupy your planets. We only wanted to prove that we could. 1 year had passed since the day the galaxy learned what humans were truly capable of. The Crystal Council chamber above Nexus Prime looked the same as always, but everything else had changed. Council Speaker Vextar sat at the circular table that glowed with soft blue light. Beside him sat Director Linda Hayes, the human representative to the Galactic Council. Hayes was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and intelligent brown eyes. She wore the same formal robes as the other council members, but her presence still felt strange to many aliens. The trade report from the Kepler sector shows remarkable improvement, Hayes said, reading from her datapad. Shipping times have decreased by 30% since we implemented the new routing system. Vextar nodded. The humans had brought many changes to galactic civilization, and most of them had been beneficial. Trade was more efficient, communication was faster, and conflicts between species had almost disappeared. But Vextar still remembered the fear he had felt that day when human ships had surrounded the council station. The demonstration of human power had been so overwhelming that the council had agreed to all human demands within hours. The agricultural colonies in the Outer Rim are also reporting success, said Council Member Mirith of the Centauran Federation. The new farming techniques have increased food production on 17 worlds. The farming techniques had been shared by Dr. Helen Moore, who was no longer hiding her identity as a military officer. Moore now ran the Interspecies Agricultural Institute on Haven Prime, where humans and aliens worked together to solve food shortage problems. Hayes smiled. Dr. Moore tells me that her team has developed crops that can grow on 3 more previously uninhabitable worlds. We should be able to establish new colonies there within the year. It was hard to believe that Moore had once been part of the military operation that had disabled Haven Prime's defenses. Now she was one of the most respected scientists in the galaxy, working to prevent famine and hunger wherever they occurred. Kepler Station, Captain Lisa Rodriguez walked through the main commerce deck where hundreds of traders from dozens of species conducted business. The station had been completely rebuilt after the human takeover, and it was now the most efficient trading hub in the galaxy. Rodriguez still captained the cargo ship Wanderer, but it was no longer disguised as a simple freighter. The ship's true capabilities were now visible for all to see. Its advanced sensors and communication systems helped coordinate trade between distant worlds. Captain Rodriguez called Station Master Clack as she passed his office. The 4-armed Rigelian waved to her with enthusiasm. I have the quarterly reports you requested. Rodriguez entered Clack's office and accepted the datapad he offered. The numbers showed remarkable growth in trade volume and efficiency. Ships were arriving and departing faster than ever before, and conflicts between traders had almost disappeared. The new scheduling system is working perfectly. Clack buzzed happily. Before the humans arrived, we had constant problems with ships arriving at the same time. Now everything flows smoothly. Rodriguez smiled. The scheduling system was based on human logistics technology that had been developed during their centuries of isolation. It used advanced computer algorithms to predict traffic patterns and prevent congestion. I am glad to hear it, Rodriguez said. Smooth trade benefits everyone. What Clack did not know was that the same technology that made trade more efficient also gave humans complete knowledge of every cargo shipment in the galaxy. The intelligence network that had once been used for military purposes now helped prevent crime and smuggling. On the industrial world of Titan's Edge, Carlos Santos had expanded his repair shop into a major manufacturing center. The building that had once hidden advanced weapons now produced improved engines and communication systems for ships throughout the sector. Santos worked alongside alien engineers who had once been his enemies. Together, they developed new technologies that combined human innovation with alien knowledge. The results were machines that were more efficient and reliable than anything either species could have created alone. "The new engine design is ready for testing," said Velnok, a draconian engineer who had become Santos's business partner. The large reptilian being had initially been suspicious of working with humans, but he had quickly learned to respect their technical skills. Santos examined the blueprints on his computer screen. The engine used human quantum technology combined with draconian metallurgy. It would be twice as fast as current engines and use half as much fuel. "Excellent work," Santos said. "With engines like this, travel between distant worlds will become much easier." The partnership between humans and aliens had produced innovations that neither species could have achieved separately. Human technology provided new approaches to old problems, while alien knowledge offered solutions that humans had never considered. On Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison stood in his office aboard the orbital station New Genesis. The station was larger than the old facility and served as the headquarters for human operations throughout the galaxy. Through his window, Morrison could see the blue planet that had been humanity's prison for 3 centuries. Lieutenant Patricia Williams entered his office carrying a stack of reports. She had been promoted to colonel since the liberation, and she now served as Morrison's chief of staff. "Sir, we have reports from all sectors," Williams said. "Human integration into galactic society is proceeding smoothly on all fronts." Morrison took the reports and read through them quickly. Human agents who had once operated in secret were now serving openly as diplomats, scientists, and business leaders. The skills they had developed during their covert operations made them excellent at solving problems and preventing conflicts. "Any signs of resistance or resentment?" Morrison asked. "Some minor incidents," Williams replied. "A few alien groups still believe humans are too dangerous to trust, but the majority of species have accepted our presence. Many actually prefer working with humans now." Morrison was not surprised. Humans had proven themselves to be reliable partners who kept their promises and worked for mutual benefit. The demonstration of human power had been necessary to gain respect, but it was human character that had earned trust. "What about our military readiness?" Morrison asked. "All defense systems remain at full capacity," Williams reported. "But we have had no need to use them. The galaxy has been remarkably peaceful since our integration." Morrison walked to his window and looked out at the stars. The same stars that had once been forbidden to humanity were now accessible to anyone with a human passport. Human ships traveled freely throughout the galaxy, carrying passengers, cargo, and ideas to distant worlds. The space around Earth had also changed dramatically. Dozens of alien ships were now visible in orbit, bringing visitors, students, and business partners to the human homeworld. Earth had become one of the most important diplomatic centers in the galaxy. Director Linda Hayes appeared on Morrison's communication screen from the council station. She looked tired but satisfied. "Admiral, the council has approved the proposal for the new joint research facility," Hayes reported. "It will be built at the Galactic Center, and all species will contribute scientists and resources." Morrison smiled. The research facility would study problems that affected the entire galaxy, from disease prevention to resource management. It represented the kind of cooperation that had been impossible before human integration. "Excellent news," Morrison said. "Humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to bring different groups together for common goals." As Morrison ended the communication, he reflected on how much had changed. The Galactic Council had once seen humans as a dangerous and unpredictable species that needed to be contained. They had been right about humans being dangerous but wrong about everything else. Humans were not unpredictable. They were methodical planners who thought decades ahead. They were not destructive. They were builders who created better systems wherever they went. They were not conquerors. They were partners who made everyone around them stronger. The Council's mistake had not been in releasing humanity from quarantine. Their mistake had been putting humans in quarantine in the first place. 3 centuries of isolation had given humanity time to study, plan, and prepare for their emergence as a galactic power. But perhaps the greatest mistake had been underestimating human patience. The Council had expected humans to react with immediate violence or rebellion. Instead, humans had waited for the perfect moment and then acted with devastating precision. Now, the galaxy was learning what humans could accomplish when they were free to use their full potential. Trade was more efficient, technology was advancing faster, and cooperation between species had reached levels never seen before. The Council had let the humans go, expecting to release a broken and defeated species into the galaxy. Instead, they had freed the most effective organizers, innovators, and problem solvers the galaxy had ever known. Morrison looked out at the stars one more time before returning to his desk. Humanity had finally taken its rightful place in galactic civilization. The long imprisonment was over, and the age of human partnership with the galaxy had begun. The Council had made a fatal mistake, but it had turned out to be fatal to their old way of thinking, not to the galaxy itself. Everything,